Mick Cronin is preparing to use Press Virginia to success in the Big Ten. How? Why? And how will the players react?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. And where we get started today is UCLA preparing to use a full court press throughout the games this upcoming season. What does that mean? Well, first we'll tell you that this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first order and your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, there's no terms applying here, where Mick Cronin has a roster crunch. So much talent spread throughout incoming freshmen, 6 transfers, returners. If you look at the scoring coming back for UCLA, the Bruins actually returned close to 63%, right? 63 to 64% in returning scoring. That actually leads the conference in the Big Ten of returning scoring options from last year percentage-wise. That doesn't include 3 to 4 players coming in the portal that averaged more than Dylan Andrews did individually, each more points per game than what Dylan Andrews did. And that's 2 talented freshmen coming in and talented sophomores and juniors who want to maintain their stable roles heading into the first year of the Big Ten. Why is this even a thing? Well, first, I was saw Ben Bolch tweeted, he talked to Mick Cronin about how he's the LA Times beat reporter for UCLA, where Mick Cronin is going to install full court press in his first practice. They're going to go full court defensively this year. Why does that even make sense? Is it even going to work? UCLA already, even on a bad year and a down year for UCLA, Mick Cronin tends to have one of the better defensive coaching minds in the country. And regardless, how are teams going to crack his defensive mantra? Normally they don't, or they shoot some threes and they beat it. But UCLA is got to find a way to get guys minutes, keep guys happy, get them on the floor. And in my mind, what's the better way to do that than, while you're going to look at the stat sheet, you're going to say probably Dylan Andrews is playing less minutes. You're going to see guys who played 30-plus minutes elsewhere playing 20 to 25. Other centers are going to play less minutes. But what's the best way to make guys feel involved and earn more minutes and feel like they played a ton of minutes while not playing so many and lightening the load? If you play a full court press defense, similar to the recent decade, if you wish, of Press Virginia, where the West Virginia Mountaineers led that to quite a few 20-win seasons, then I think UCLA is going to follow that model. So in my mind, Mick Cronin could be using this as a way to get guys on the floor. If you don't learn defense or you can't do it, then all of a sudden UCLA could get guys more minutes, tire them out quickly so they want to come out, and then get new, fresher bodies in, right? It could be a similar strategy to what the Dallas Mavericks did with their center to get into the NBA Finals, right? They just brought one guy in, brought the next guy out. But UCLA can do that across the board from positions 1 through 5, get this guy in, get him tired, lighten the load minutes-wise, but get another guy in who puts in a lot of energy, a lot of effort if they want to go press Virginia, full court press for a whole game. Now, I'm not entirely sure that he's going to go press Virginia, but they want to install a full court press. And I know Mick Cronin teased it a little bit last year in 23-24, didn't really come to fruition. This year, it makes a lot of sense because UCLA, under Mick Cronin, hasn't really turned in the most efficient, exciting offenses. But if you're bringing an up-tempo, exciting defensive scheme that can turn into easy buckets, transition threes, a lot of scoring, it's a really athletic bunch Mick Cronin's bringing in. From Dylan Andrews returning, you've got Stefanovic. How do you bring in an all-defensive player like Kobe Johnson? How do you use the likes of William Kyle? How do you get Eric Daly Jr. on the floor? Where do you even slot in Eric Freeney and Trent Perry? How are they going to fight for minutes with Sky Clark and Andrews and all that, Sebastian Mack? Well, one, you win the defensive battle. That's how you earn Mick Cronin's trust. You win over his heart, and you get put in the game. Pressing and getting guys in is going to wear them out and get them on the floor quicker, in my mind. And how does this correlate to Mick Cronin's coaching career? One of the guys that Mick Cronin looks up to, while he is maybe not the most favorite guy at the moment, but his college basketball IQ is certainly there. Bob Huggins, from his days at West Virginia, well, dating back to their days at Cincinnati, but Mick Cronin, when you hear interviews and talk about basketball, he throws out Bob Huggins' name so many times, again and again. So he trusts his opinion from his days and age prior to him coaching at UCLA and as a head coach, and prior to his Cincinnati head coaching days, and before Bob Huggins really fell off the map there. But Bob Huggins, remember when things were still going good for him at West Virginia? He had led his team to a Final Four. Then 2 years later, they switched conference affiliations from the Big East to the Big 12. Things didn't start off as good. He switched to a full court press, quote unquote, press Virginia, led that to 20 plus wins for the next 4 to 5 seasons, and continued to keep his career going in a new conference, which was still then a pretty loaded basketball conference, even amidst the extra travel, amidst the probably uptick in foul calls, in talent in that conference. That's how he led West Virginia to be competitive in the Big 12 year in and year out after his Final Four run. How does that similar to UCLA? Isn't it sounding a little similar? Think about it. UCLA went to a Final Four a couple years ago. Mick Cronin had a down year, a losing record. Him and Bob Huggins, both very competitive. Then you switch conferences because of the college football affiliation, right? The Big East fell apart football-wise. That's why West Virginia went to the Big 12. The Pac-12 couldn't get it together. So West Virginia went Big 12. UCLA left the Pac-12, and they're going to the Big 10 to get all the money. What does that bring? Increased cost of travel. How does that work? Well, you get a buy-in from day in and day out. You got a coach hungry for wins, right? This is a coach who is at one of his dream destinations, right? Mick Cronin at UCLA. For Bob Huggins, then it was West Virginia, his alma mater. They are frustrated trying to turn things around with a new conference and more travel. Well, you've got a roster full of guys who can play. That is why press Virginia, whatever Mick Cronin decides to do, I'm not entirely sure it's going to be press Virginia to 95, 90% of the games, because even Bob Huggins then pulled back. He pulled in the reins and said, all right, we're not going to do this as much. UCLA can use this to their advantage this year, and whatever tape they got on Cronin's coaching style from the previous year, he could probably shock teams into going 100% defensively with the full court press, harassing them with a three-quarters court. They could go relentless in the half court like Mick Cronin's tended to do, and he has more athletic guys, more depth guys athletically, and a lot more scoring options. So even if teams are breaking the press, he can pull it back. And the Bruins, I think, still have the scoring repertoire this year with so many options 1 through 5 that they're going to outscore teams. They can out-rebound teams. If they install this full-court press, UCLA could jump out to an immediately being one of the top 5 teams in the country just by reeling off wins from just being shell-shocking other teams with this potential press. If UCLA executes it, installs it, and goes to press Virginia. Because Mick Cronin talks so much about Bob Huggins. And Bob Huggins, switched what he did at West Virginia, right? He's had a lot of bad rap recently with what he said. But what he did in 2012, 2013 for his basketball team specifically was switch things up. Mick Cronin is trying to do the same thing basketball-wise. And if he does that this year with a lot of new faces, a new conference, new treading of the water, a way to get everybody playing time potentially, this could lead to success for UCLA. Now, he didn't use the words press Virginia, but you have to look at his motivation and his influence from his previous coaching stops. And who do you think he still talks to on the phone or had recent conversations? His father's a legendary coach. He's got lots of good guys in terms of previous stops, who he's talked to around the basketball world. You're telling me a full court press isn't going to shock the world again? UConn was super uber athletic and dominated the last 2 years to win back-to-back championships. How are you going to knock off the top dogs or teams expected to be at the top? You do something different and you be innovative. And Mick Cronin thought he did it recruiting-wise, going internationally. Instead, he's going to do it what he does best and ramp up his defense, potentially in this next season to a press. Added scoring, increased athleticism, certainly a lot of depth because they've got so many scholarships. They created an NIL scholarship, which isn't a real scholarship, just to pay a player to come. The Bruins have the absolute ability to do this. And I'm excited if they do this for this next year. All right, so we should be excited and ready to rock and roll. Speaking of excitement, the UCLA women have 3 big-time transfers coming in, a big-time game at home against the reigning champs and number 1 team in the country preseason-wise. Why should we be excited? Let's talk about the incoming freshmen a little bit, transfers, and what this UCLA women's roster has coming up next on Locked On UCLA. Let's tell you about Gametime, because Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier because you go to prices, you look at the Gametime app, they actually go down closer to first pitch. I know you're sitting there, you're like, I want to go to a Dodger game last minute. All right, let's go to Gametime. You want to see these games in SoCal, across the country. You're waiting to that last minute, boom, get that lowest price because they've got a lowest price guarantee. Gametime, if you go find another ticket, similar row area, right, it's going to be a credit of 110% of the difference if you do that. The lowest price guarantee on Gametime. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account. Redeemable code is LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's cruise on, right? Second segment, Locked On UCLA. Zach with you guys. The Bruin women, they are getting locked and loaded for this upcoming 24-25 campaign because in addition to the move to the Big Ten, you've got some changing of the guard while also still the same, right? There's no Caitlin Clarks in this upcoming college basketball world, but who is about to take that throne? That's the team with their leader across town. You've got the big dog in South Carolina and Dawn Staley. You've got UConn with Paige Beckers ready to go crazy. And then you've got UCLA, who's been knocking on the door. They've been just trying to make their first NCAA Final Four in program history since women's basketball has been sponsored by the NCAA. They have a chance to make a run. UCLA had a chance last year to make a run to the Elite Eight, to the Final Four, which I thought they should have. They should have beaten LSU, didn't. And certainly would have had a chance against the national runners-up in Iowa. But whatever it is, UCLA could not do so. But the Bruins this year, they've got the return of Kiki Rice. They've got the London Jones of the world. They had the big transfer get of Lauren Betts. So remember, that class of 22 has the 1, the 2 best transfer. And the recent transfers, let's remind you what they are. Charlize Ledger-Walker, who will be overcoming a knee injury, but when healthy and if healthy, was a player who led Washington State to half a victory over UCLA. She got injured in the UCLA game. She led Washington State to a win over UCLA in the Pac-12 tournament in 23, practically willing the Cougars to the tournament. And if she didn't go down, would have done it again in 24, and is a clear lottery pick if healthy in the WNBA. So with UCLA getting her with the top tier players at the end of the Pac-12 conference era, that's a big get. If she's healthy, she is a big dynamic scorer for UCLA, who was missing the likes of Emily Bissoir last year. That would be a huge upgrade for sure, but replacement for the injury that Bissoir didn't play last year. Then you've got Tamea Gardner, who comes up back and comes from an Elite Eight Oregon State team that has been simply just ripped apart. Players going everywhere in the portal. Gardner, I believe, close to a 40% three-point shooter, can be a double-figure scorer. That is what UCLA is getting. Probably a better comparison to Emily Bissoir, who UCLA missed all of last year. You get some shooting, you get some scoring, some veteran leadership on players who either were the best and led their team to the tournament in tournament time, or was a part of a team that went deep and sees what it takes to beat the best and play the best. And then you've got Janiah Barker, who comes from Texas A&M. That's the type of pull UCLA has right now to go get a 2-time double-figure scoring player from Texas A&M, in which she comes over from SEC country to UCLA, and the Bruins are in an arms race comparing and battling themselves with USC, right? It's going to be a big-time battle when they play USC, not once, probably but twice, maybe even 3 times as they did last year. And if they ever get a crazy chance, 4 times. And then you get this year, UCLA gets to host, which they announced a few weeks ago in mid-June, South Carolina at home. The Bruins went to South Carolina in late 22. Now they get to bring them home in November of 24. And that's what the beauty of women's basketball is, right? You get the UConn-USC game, South Carolina, Stanford, UConn. They've never been afraid to go on the road and just go challenge somebody in front of a sold-out crowd on the road, right? Going when Oregon was good with UNESCO, all these fun games we had. And UCLA gets to host South Carolina, who's only lost 1 game the last 2 years, and that's been in the Final Four of 23. So that will be a big, fun test early for UCLA, who brings in the 3 transfers with lots of experience. You bring in Barker, who is a Georgia native, comes over from A&M, was a top-tier recruit, number 3, I believe, in that class of 22. So it gives UCLA, I think, all top 3 of the recruits from 22. So they're juniors. They've played 2 years in various aspects, and we saw the successive Betts. I'm not sure if Barker is going to come in and start alongside Lauren Betts, or she'll be depth behind her in case she gets injured or is in foul trouble, or if the Bruins want to do a double post type action. Whatever it may be, the Bruins should be able to dominate the boards. They have the depth to dominate the boards, and they can go to multiple options in the post. They've got the scoring, they've got the shooting, and they've got the maturity and the wisdom of back-to-back postseason runs, losing to South Carolina, playing and losing to LSU. And now you've got to compete against one of the nation's best, 1-2 in the country, in Juju Watkins and all their transfers they brought in. But don't forget, UCLA has the top 3 recruits from the class of 22. They brought in 2 to 3, depending on the ranking system you use, 5 stars in this class of 24, and an international recruit coming in, mixture from across the country, Central California, all the way across the world. UCLA has got a top 4, top 5 team coming in and just freshman recruits. Remember, the way Corey Close has done it, 2 years, hit the portal, got that big 22 class, although a couple people have left. You've seen Kiki Rice, you've seen Jones, you've seen some players develop, you get some players also, and then 2 years, it's another big freshman class, and is trying to develop this team into a contender here in their first year in Big Ten play. I think UCLA shouldn't be short of anything in terms of first, second, maybe third in the Big Ten this upcoming year. Remember, Ohio State was pretty good. You had some solid, scrappy teams, but I think you're going to have, unfortunately, USC number 1 and UCLA number 2, maybe number 3, depending on where they slot in the Big Ten Conference. But it should be a fun year, and UCLA has been holding their own, grabbing players in the transfer portal, bringing in the freshmen and bringing in talent from last year. You mix and match. Yes, you're going to miss Osborne, but UCLA's got the scoring to replace it in Ledger Walker in a bigger, taller body, stronger, and hopefully when she's healthy can do that. The shooting that they missed last year, and more depth than they had in the 23-24 season. I think more depth. Obviously, injuries are always a concern every season, but UCLA is ready to compete this year in the Big Ten, where they get to play the SCs twice. They get to go travel the Big Ten country, and most importantly, host South Carolina in November of 24. So that'll be super exciting. And, the hype is real. Last year, they're number 2, number 3 in the country preseason. UCLA's not getting as much love. Heading into this year, they're number 5 in the way too early preseason rankings, which is by no means terrible. And I think UCLA should certainly be able to compete and make a run to an Elite 8, get over the hump, get past that Sweet 16, and crack into the Final Four. But it starts with building a roster, continuing to fill it out, finding the roles, and see who develops in their freshman year, in their transfer year. And for UCLA, some of these players, second, third year in the program, can turn into something special, like Kiki Rice has. The combination of Betts, Jones, and everything else. That's just kind of going off the top of my head right now. UCLA has so much potential. Can't even forget about Gabby Hawkins, right? The legend who was on the UCLA softball team and made it to the Women's College World Series. Also a basketball star. This team is ready to go, and I hope you should be too. Speaking of ready to go, UCLA Athletics announced the 2024 Hall of Fame class. So we're going to name who it is, say what the little mentions were, and say, all right, this is your upcoming 24 class, and remember the Bruins of the past. So to end this episode of Locked On UCLA, UCLA Athletics recently announced and posted who is the 2024 Hall of Fame class. They'll be honored in the September 14th game against the Indiana Hoosiers, who will be UCLA's first Big Ten game. So let's get excited for the first home game of the year, where they'll be honoring all these Hall of Fame class members. So starting from women's gymnastics, you've got Vanessa Zamaripa, who came in. That was a two-time NCAA champion, 19 All-America honors, the second most in UCLA history, and scored 9 perfect 10s. The 2010 and 2013 gymnast, Pac-12 Gymnast of the Year, and was named the NACGC Women's Division I National Gymnast of the Year. So this is someone who was a dominant force in the most recent decade, 2009 to 2013, and Vanessa becomes a UCLA Hall of Famer. Then you've got another Vanessa Teff from UCLA Women's Rowing, was a 3-time All-American, 4-time All-West and All-West Region and All-Pac-12 performer, became just the second Bruin ever to earn All-America honors. It was one of just 12 collegiate rowers in the Western United States become an All-American. And UCLA was able to get at large berths in 06 and 07 with Vanessa Teff as 2 of UCLA's honorees this year. Then you've got Brian Teacher, 4-time All-American, a pair of NCAA titles, team titles in 1975, 1976, including a Pac-8 title in 76. He was the team captain and had a 4-year record of, get this, 75-8. 75-8 overall. So that is Brian Teacher, who also was a teacher, helped with different teaching after that. And, now I'm just losing my spot. But he is somebody who was influential in the men's tennis side from 1973 to 1976. Also developed the full court tennis app. So he is coming in. That is your tennis side of things. UCLA, you have Charlotte Mayorkas, a women's golfer from 2002 to 2005, was the first ever women's golfer at UCLA to earn All-America honors 3 times, a 2-time team MVP. Her standout year was in 2004 when UCLA had an NCAA title when she had a 4th place individual finish. So UCLA has someone who is, kind of started everything on the women's golf side. This year they went on a big run, fell just a little short on the women's golf side, but in 2002 to 2005, Charlotte Mayorkas, who got things started with the All-America honors, won it 3 times, was the first golfer to earn it 3 times in her career, All-America honors. Then we go to Sean Kern, from the late 90s to early 2000s, 2-time Catino Award winner, back-to-back NCAA titles in 99. In 2000, the Bruins fell a little bit short on the men's side in 24, but for him, he was the tournament MVP both years, ranks 3rd all-time in career goals with 177, and led the Bruins in scoring in each of his first 3 seasons as a freshman, sophomore, and junior. Missed 10 games while playing for Team USA in the 2000 Olympics. So think about that. He was playing with Team USA in the Olympics, still missed 10 games and everything. And he was still a dominant factor for UCLA in 2000. Just like we have an Olympic year, you see some players take an Olympic year. He was dominant and kept things going. Now we get to the hardwood. UCLA elects Rod Foster he was one of just 15 4-year starters in UCLA men's basketball history. Rocket Rod, 113 games, averaged 12 points per game, had 240 assists, leading to 2 assists per game. And the big thing about Rocket Rod, remains UCLA's all-time career leader in free throw percentage, 88%, and has the top 3 marks for single-season free throw average, which was 95% his junior year, and as a sophomore hit 90.9% of his free throws. Made it to the NBA for a short stint with the Phoenix Suns, and has been instrumental in the game of basketball after that when he stopped playing basketball with a career-ending injury. 1980 to 1983, as he was an important piece of UCLA's early post-Wooden era. Then, last but not least, you've got the late Milt Davis, the 7th out of 7 members in this UCLA Hall of Fame class, was a Bruin, played in 1952 and 1953. The Bruins had 16-3-1 records those years, 2 top 10 national rankings, and was part of a team that made it to the 1954 Rose Bowl game. Drafted by the Lions, had to serve in the U.S. Army first, then returned in 57, signed with the Colts, and won back-to-back NFL championships in 58 and 59 with the Baltimore Colts. So this is somebody who's won championships prior to the days and age of the Super Bowl, was a second-team All-NFL Pro, returned an interception for a touchdown in the NFL championship game, had a doctorate degree from UCLA, taught at John Marshall, was a scout in the NFL for 36 years, passed away back in 2008, but he is posthumously being announced as a UCLA Hall of Famer back in the 50s. So that is your 7-member class of UCLA's Hall of Fame in 2024. So that is big time Bruins getting some love. Remember, that's Milt Davis, Rod Foster, Sean Kern, Charlotte Mayorkas, Brian Teacher, Vanessa Teff, and Vanessa Zamaripa. So that is your 7-member class of elite Bruins representing 7 different sports coming in to bring it to UCLA. So we thank them for their efforts. We thank them and applaud them for their efforts. And hopefully their families and they, depending on who represents them, will have the best of times at UCLA's first ever Big Ten Conference football game. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Locked On UCLA. Hit that subscribe button, download, comment what you think about potential Press Virginia, what you think about the women's basketball season, and what do you think about these Hall of Fame honorees. Thanks for your support. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.